Hello and welcome to ZzScience. Wherever you're listening from tonight, let the day fade a little. We'll move slowly from here. Tonight, we're going to talk about silence. Not the kind you find in a room when everyone stops talking. Something else. The silence of galaxies. The kind that stretches across distances we can barely think about without our minds going a bit numb. Space feels empty. You've probably heard that before. Maybe you've seen pictures, dots of light scattered across black, and between those dots, nothing. Or what looks like nothing. But what does that actually mean? Let's start somewhere simple. If you went outside right now and looked up, you'd see stars. Depending on where you are, maybe a lot of them, maybe just a few. They look close together, don't they? Like someone's scattered salt across a dark table. But they're not close, not even remotely. The nearest star to us, other than the Sun, is called Proxima Centauri. It's about 4 light-years away. That means if you could travel at the speed of light, which nothing with mass can do, it would still take you 4 years to get there. 4 years of moving at 300,000 kilometers every second. And that's the nearest one. Most of the stars you see at night are dozens, hundreds, even thousands of light-years away. And those are just the ones we can see. The ones bright enough, close enough, positioned right. The visible ones. The galaxy we live in, the Milky Way, contains somewhere between 100 and 400 billion stars. The estimates vary. It's hard to count something that big from the inside. But even with all those stars, most of the galaxy is empty space. If you shrunk the Sun down to the size of a grain of sand, the nearest star would be another grain of sand, about 4 miles away. 4 miles of nothing in between. That's just within our galaxy. Now think bigger. The Milky Way is one galaxy among billions, maybe trillions. We're still not sure of the exact number. Every time we build a better telescope, we find more. Faint ones, distant ones. Galaxies so far away, their light has been traveling toward us since before Earth existed. And between those galaxies, even more emptiness. The distance between galaxies makes the space between stars look crowded. Our nearest large neighbor is the Andromeda galaxy. It's about 2.5 million light-years away. You can see it with the naked eye on a clear night if you know where to look. Just a faint smudge. Doesn't look like much. But it contains around 1 trillion stars. 1 trillion stars compressed into a smudge of light, sitting 2.5 million light-years away. The light you see from Andromeda left that galaxy 2.5 million years ago. Back when early human ancestors were just beginning to walk upright on the plains of Africa. Before tools, before language, before fire. That light has been traveling through empty space ever since, crossing a void. And Andromeda is close, cosmically speaking. It's part of what we call the local group, a collection of about 54 galaxies, all loosely bound together by gravity. Most of them are small, dwarf galaxies, scattered around the bigger ones like the Milky Way and Andromeda. Beyond the local group, things get quieter. The next significant cluster of galaxies is the Virgo cluster, about 55 million light-years away. It contains over 1,000 galaxies, maybe more. They're grouped together in a region of space, pulled together by gravity over billions of years. But to get there from here, you'd cross an enormous stretch of mostly nothing. Just darkness. A few scattered galaxies here and there, but mostly quiet. This is what cosmologists mean when they talk about the large-scale structure of the universe. It's not evenly distributed. It's clumpy. Galaxies group together into clusters. Clusters group together into superclusters. And between them, are these massive voids. Voids. Regions of space where almost nothing exists. No galaxies. No stars. Just a few stray atoms of hydrogen drifting in the dark. Some of these voids are hundreds of millions of light years across. Imagine that. A sphere of space so large that light takes hundreds of millions of years to cross it, and inside, almost nothing. You could travel through one of these voids for your entire life, if you could travel at the speed of light, and never see a galaxy. Just blackness in every direction. No stars to navigate by. No reference points. Just silence. It's hard to picture that kind of emptiness. Our brains didn't evolve to understand it. We live on a planet where you're never more than a few feet from something. Trees, buildings, other people. Even the air is full of things, molecules, dust, pollen. But out there, in those voids, there's nothing to bump into. 1 atom per cubic meter maybe, sometimes less. For comparison, the air you're breathing right now contains about 10 to the 25th power molecules per cubic meter. That's a 1 with 25 zeros after it. In intergalactic space, you get 1 atom per cubic meter if you're lucky. Mostly hydrogen. Sometimes nothing at all for kilometers. Why is it like this? Why so much emptiness? It has to do with how the universe began, and how it's been expanding ever since. About 13.8 billion years ago, everything we can observe, all the matter, all the energy, all the space itself, was compressed into an incredibly small, incredibly hot state. Then it started expanding. Not like an explosion into empty space. Space itself was expanding. Still is. In the very early moments, the universe was dense, unimaginably so. But as it expanded, things spread out. Matter started to cool. Small fluctuations in density, tiny ripples in the fabric of space, became the seeds for everything that came later. Where the density was slightly higher, gravity pulled more matter together. Over millions of years, those regions collapsed into the first stars, the first galaxies. Where the density was slightly lower, matter drifted away. Those regions became voids. And as the universe kept expanding, those voids got bigger, emptier. The galaxies kept moving apart from each other, pulled by the expansion of space itself. Not moving through space, but carried along as space stretched. Think of it like dots on a balloon. As you inflate the balloon, the dots move away from each other. Not because they're traveling across the surface, but because the surface itself is expanding. That's what's happening with galaxies. The farther apart they are, the faster they appear to move away from each other. A galaxy 1 billion light years away is receding from us faster than one that's only 1 million light years away. It's not that they're moving faster through space, it's that there's more space between us expanding. And this expansion is accelerating. We didn't always know that. For a long time, scientists assumed the expansion was slowing down. Gravity should pull everything back together, right? Or at least slow the expansion. But in the late 1990s, astronomers noticed something strange. Distant supernovae, exploding stars, were dimmer than they should be, which meant they were farther away than expected. Which meant the universe wasn't just expanding, it was expanding faster now than it was billions of years ago. Something was pushing space apart. We call it dark energy. We don't really know what it is, just that it's there, and it's making the universe grow. About 68% of the universe is dark energy. Another 27% is dark matter, stuff we can't see, that doesn't interact with light, but we know it's there because of its gravitational effects. Everything else, stars, planets, gas, dust, all the light we can see, makes up less than 5%. The universe is mostly things we can't see, mostly empty, mostly silent. When you look at a picture of deep space, one of those images from the Hubble telescope, say, where every dot is a galaxy, it's easy to forget how much space there is between those dots. Each galaxy might contain billions of stars, but the space around it? Dark. If you were floating between galaxies, you wouldn't see much. Maybe a faint glow from the nearest galaxy, millions of light years away. But nothing else. No stars overhead. No Milky Way stretching across the sky. Just black. The cosmic microwave background would be there, technically. A faint glow of radiation left over from the Big Bang, stretched out into microwaves by the expansion of space. But you couldn't see it with your eyes. It's too faint, too cold. You'd be surrounded by silence. Not the absence of sound, there's no air in space to carry sound, but the absence of light, of information, of anything happening nearby. Most of the universe is like that. Quiet, still. Even inside galaxies, there's a lot of nothing. Stars are spread out, planets even more so. The distances are so large that collisions are rare. When the Milky Way and Andromeda eventually merge, billions of years from now, the galaxies will pass through each other like ghosts. Stars will slide past other stars without ever getting close. The space between them is just too vast. Two galaxies, hundreds of billions of stars in each, and almost none of them will touch. They'll just move past each other in silence. It's strange to think about. All that matter, all that light, and still so much space in between. We talk about the universe like it's full of things, and it is, in one sense. But in another sense, it's mostly empty, mostly quiet, mostly dark. The light we see from distant galaxies is old, ancient even. When you look at a galaxy a billion light years away, you're seeing it as it was a billion years ago. The light from that galaxy has been traveling through space for a billion years to reach your eyes. That galaxy might not even exist anymore. It could have collided with another galaxy, been torn apart, its stars scattered. But you wouldn't know, because the light from that event hasn't reached you yet. It's still crossing the void, still traveling through the silence. This is one of the strange things about distance in space. It's not just physical distance, it's time. The farther away something is, the farther back in time you're seeing it. The most distant galaxies we've observed are so far away that their light has been traveling for over 13 billion years. We're seeing them as they were when the universe was young, small, still forming their first stars. Those galaxies are gone now, in the sense that they've changed. They've merged with other galaxies, evolved, aged. But we'll never see that. We only see the light that left them 13 billion years ago. Everything else is hidden by distance, by time, by the emptiness in between. And here's the thing, there are parts of the universe we'll never see at all. Because the universe is expanding, and that expansion is accelerating. There are galaxies so far away that their light will never reach us. The space between us and them is expanding faster than light can cross it. Not because light is slowing down. Light always moves at the same speed. But because the space itself is growing. Imagine running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. You're running as fast as you can, but the treadmill is accelerating faster than your top speed. You'll never reach the end. That's what's happening with light from those distant galaxies. It's moving toward us, but the space between us is expanding faster than it can cross. So it never arrives. Those galaxies are beyond what we call the cosmological horizon, the edge of the observable universe. Not because there's nothing beyond it. There probably is. Maybe an infinite amount of space, full of galaxies just like ours. But we can't see it. We never will. It's too far, too quiet, too isolated by the expansion of space. The observable universe, the part we can see, is about 93 billion light-years across. That's the radius of the sphere of space from which light has had time to reach us since the Big Bang. But the whole universe? Probably much bigger, maybe infinitely bigger. We don't know, and we can't know, because the rest is hidden behind that horizon, separated from us by an emptiness we can never cross. There's something humbling about that. We live in a galaxy with hundreds of billions of stars, in a universe with trillions of galaxies, and most of it is out of reach. Most of it is silent. When we send signals into space, radio transmissions, intentional messages, they travel outward at the speed of light. But they weaken as they go, spreading out in all directions, fading. By the time a signal from Earth reaches even the nearest star, it's unimaginably faint, a whisper in the noise. And the farther it goes, the quieter it gets. Eventually, it becomes indistinguishable from the background radiation of space, lost in the silence. If there's anyone out there listening, they'd have to be close. And they'd have to be looking in exactly the right direction at exactly the right time. Otherwise, our signals just vanish into the emptiness. We've been sending radio signals into space for about a century now. TV broadcasts, radar, deliberate messages. That means there's a bubble of space around Earth, about 100 light-years across, where anyone with the right equipment could potentially detect us. 100 light-years. That sounds like a lot. But our galaxy is about 100,000 light-years across. We've barely whispered, and most of that whisper has already faded. The silence of space isn't just physical, it's communicative. Even if there are other civilizations out there, other beings looking up at their night sky, wondering if they're alone, the distances between us might be too great. Our signals might never reach them. Theirs might never reach us. We could be surrounded by neighbors, all of us shouting into the void, and none of us hearing each other. Just the silence, the emptiness in between. It's not that space is hostile, it's just indifferent. There's no malice in the vacuum, no cruelty in the distances. It's just how things are. Matter clumps together where gravity pulls it. Everything else spreads out. The universe expands, stars burn, galaxies drift, and between them, silence. We're used to thinking of silence as the absence of something, the absence of sound, of activity. But maybe silence is its own thing, not the lack of noise, but a presence, a kind of stillness. Space has that quality. It's not empty in the sense of being hollow or void. It's just still, waiting. Light moves through it. Particles drift. Occasionally, something happens. A star explodes. A galaxy collides with another. But mostly, things just are, existing quietly in the dark. There's a certain peace in that if you think about it. No rush, no hurry. Just time unfolding slowly across vast distances. When we look at the night sky, we're seeing a snapshot of that stillness. Light from distant stars, frozen in time. Patterns that have been there for thousands of years, barely changing. The constellations our ancestors saw are almost identical to the ones we see now. Orion, the Big Dipper, Cassiopeia, The stars have moved a little. Everything in the galaxy is slowly orbiting the center, but not enough for us to notice in a human lifetime, or even 100 human lifetimes. The sky looks the same, unchanging, silent. Of course, things are happening. Stars are being born, others are dying. Galaxies are colliding in slow motion over millions of years. But from our perspective, it all looks still. Because the timescales are so vast, because the distances are so great. We exist in a tiny sliver of space and time, and from here, the universe looks frozen, quiet, like a photograph. But it's not frozen. It's just moving slowly, very slowly. Imagine watching a glacier. From moment to moment, it looks completely still. You could sit and stare at it for hours and never see it move. But it is moving. Inches per day, feet per year. Over decades, it carves valleys, reshapes landscapes. The universe is like that, except the timescales are even longer. Millions of years, billions. From our perspective, it's silent, still, but it's changing, just too slowly for us to see. We've only been watching the sky carefully for a few centuries, with telescopes, with instruments that can measure tiny shifts in light. In that time, we've learned an enormous amount. But it's still just a blink, a fraction of a second in the life of the universe. We're seeing one frame of an incredibly long, incredibly slow film, and trying to understand the whole story from that single frame. It's remarkable we've figured out as much as we have, that we can measure the distance to galaxies billions of light years away, that we can calculate the age of the universe, that we can map the distribution of matter and trace the history of cosmic expansion. All from this one tiny vantage point. A single planet orbiting an ordinary star in an ordinary galaxy in a mostly empty universe. But we can't see everything. Most of the universe is hidden from us, not just by distance, but by the nature of space itself. Dark matter doesn't emit light. We can only detect it by its gravitational effects, by the way it bends light from distant galaxies, by the way it holds galaxies together. But we can't see it directly. It's invisible, silent. Dark energy is even more mysterious. We know it's there because of the accelerated expansion of the universe, but we don't know what it is. We can't measure it directly. We can only see its effects. The universe is mostly made of things we can't see, and the parts we can see are separated by vast stretches of emptiness. It's a strange picture when you think about it. We live in a cosmos that's mostly invisible, mostly empty, mostly quiet. And yet, here we are, a tiny pocket of complexity, of light, of noise, on a planet that's just the right distance from its star, with just the right conditions for liquid water, for chemistry, for life. We're an anomaly, a little bubble of activity in an ocean of silence. And we're probably not the only one. The universe is too big, too full of stars and planets. Somewhere out there, in another galaxy, maybe there's another pocket of complexity. Another world where beings are looking up at their night sky, wondering about the silence. But we might never know, because the distances are too great, the silence too vast. We're islands, separated by an ocean we can't cross. Even within our own galaxy, the distances are daunting. The nearest potentially habitable planet is years away at light speed. Decades or centuries with any propulsion system we can currently imagine. And that's just the nearest one. There might be thousands of habitable planets in the Milky Way, maybe more, but they're scattered across 100,000 light years of space, tiny oases in a desert of emptiness. If we ever meet another civilization, it will be a remarkable coincidence. Not just that both of us exist at the same time, which is already unlikely given the age of the universe, but that we're close enough to detect each other, that our signals happen to cross in the silence, that we're both looking in the right direction at the right time. The odds are not great, but maybe that's okay. Maybe the silence is part of the structure. Maybe the emptiness is necessary. After all, if the universe were densely packed with matter, stars would be constantly colliding. Planets would be gravitationally disrupted. Nothing would be stable enough for life to develop. The emptiness gives things room to form, to evolve, to exist without constant interference. The silence is what allows the universe to have structure. Without it, everything would be chaos. So maybe the cosmos doesn't feel empty because something's missing. Maybe it feels empty because that's what it needs to be. A vast canvas with a few careful brushstrokes. Most of it blank. Most of it quiet. But that blankness is what makes the rest possible. The galaxies, the stars, the planets, us. When you look up at the night sky tonight, you're seeing light that's traveled across that emptiness, crossed the silence. Photons that left a distant star decades or centuries or millennia ago and have been traveling ever since. Through the void, until they reached your eyes. It's a kind of connection, even across all that distance. A thread of light in the dark. But it's also a reminder of how far apart everything is, how quiet the space is in between. The cosmos doesn't feel empty because we're alone. It feels empty because it is empty. Most of it, anyway. And that emptiness is real, measurable, vast. It's not a trick of perspective. It's not an illusion. It's the actual structure of the universe. Galaxies separated by millions of light years. Stars separated by light years. Planets separated by light minutes or light hours. And between all of them, silence. Space keeps expanding. The distances keep growing. Galaxies that are currently visible will eventually drift beyond the cosmological horizon. Their light will redshift into invisibility. They'll disappear from view, not because they've been destroyed, but because the space between us has grown too large. The universe will become quieter, emptier, more isolated. Billions of years from now, if there are still beings around to look up at the sky, they'll see less than we do. Fewer galaxies, fewer stars, just the local group. Andromeda and the Milky Way merged into a single galaxy, and around them, darkness, emptiness, silence. The rest of the universe receded beyond reach. It's a strange thought, that the universe has a kind of lifespan, not in the sense that it will end, but in the sense that it will change. The age of galaxies is temporary. The age of stars is temporary. Eventually, the universe will be so spread out, so cold, so empty, that nothing much happens anymore. No new stars forming, the old ones all burned out, just black holes and dead remnants drifting through the dark, silent, still. That's trillions of years away, of course, but it's where things are headed. The silence isn't temporary, it's growing. And maybe that's the ultimate nature of the cosmos. Not a place full of life and light, but a place that briefly allows pockets of life and light before returning to stillness. We're living in one of those pockets, right now, right here, in a time when stars still shine, when galaxies still cluster, when planets orbit and life exists. It won't last forever, but for now, it's here, A little warmth in the cold, a little noise in the silence, a little light in the dark. And all around us, stretching out in every direction, the emptiness waits. Patient, quiet, vast beyond imagining. That's the cosmos. Not empty in the sense of being hollow or meaningless, but empty in the sense of being mostly space, mostly distance, mostly silence. And somehow, in the middle of all that, here we are, briefly, improbably, quietly existing on a small planet, looking out at the dark and wondering about the silence. Maybe that's enough. The silence isn't uniform. That's something worth understanding. When we talk about the emptiness of space, it's easy to imagine it as completely homogeneous, the same everywhere, a perfect void. But it's not. There are textures to it, variations, quiet structures that exist even in the emptiness. Let's talk about those for a while. Start with something called the cosmic web. If you could somehow zoom out, far enough to see billions of light years in a single view, the universe wouldn't look random. You'd see a pattern. Galaxies aren't scattered evenly through space. They form structures, filaments, long threads of galaxies stretching across hundreds of millions of light years. These filaments connect to each other at nodes, dense clusters where thousands of galaxies gather. And between the filaments, voids, enormous, empty, regions where almost nothing exists. The whole thing looks like a web, or a sponge, or the neural structure of a brain, depending on who's describing it. It's called the cosmic web, and it's one of the largest structures in the universe. But here's what's interesting. It's mostly empty space. The filaments themselves are just regions where galaxies are slightly more concentrated than average. They're not solid. There's still vast emptiness between the galaxies. And the voids are even emptier. Some of these voids are 300 million light-years across, maybe larger. Inside them, the density of matter is about 10 to 20% of the average density of the universe, which is already pretty low. So we're talking about regions of space where there's almost nothing. A few scattered dwarf galaxies maybe, some hydrogen gas, dark matter presumably, though we can't see it. But mostly, nothing. If you were somehow placed in the middle of one of these voids, you could look in any direction and see almost no galaxies. Maybe a few faint smudges on the horizon, millions of light years away. But the sky would be darker than anything we can experience from Earth. No Milky Way, no nearby stars, no constellations, just blackness and silence. These voids aren't anomalies. They're not rare. They make up most of the volume of the universe. The cosmic web is mostly web-shaped because most of it is empty. The matter, the galaxies, the stars, all the visible stuff, is concentrated into thin filaments and nodes. Everything else is void. It's like looking at a fishing net. Most of what you see is the empty space between the threads. The threads are there. They're real. But they're not what takes up most of the room. The voids are. And within those voids, time passes differently. Not literally. Physics works the same everywhere. But experientially. Nothing happens. No stars are forming. No galaxies are colliding. No supernovae going off. Just emptiness persisting. For billions of years. Unchanged. It's hard to wrap your mind around that kind of stillness. We live in a galaxy where things happen. Stars are born. Stars die. planets form, chemistry occurs. But in the voids, none of that is happening. There's no raw material, no gas clouds dense enough to collapse, no gravitational interactions to stir things up, just a few stray atoms, drifting, never colliding, never interacting, alone in the dark. Now, there is something in those voids. We just can't see it. Dark matter. We've mentioned it before, but it's worth spending a little time with. Dark matter makes up about 27% of the universe. That's roughly 5 times as much as all the normal matter, the atoms, the stuff we can see and touch. But we can't detect dark matter directly. It doesn't emit light. It doesn't absorb light. It doesn't interact with electromagnetic radiation at all, as far as we can tell. The only way we know it's there is through gravity. Dark matter has mass, and mass warps space, bends it, creates gravitational fields. We can see those effects. When we look at galaxies, they're rotating too fast. The stars on the outer edges are moving at speeds that should fling them off into space, given the amount of visible matter in the galaxy. But they don't fly off. Something is holding them in place. Dark matter, surrounding the galaxy like a halo, invisible but massive, providing the extra gravity needed to keep everything together. We can also see dark matter's effects on light. When light passes near a massive object, its path bends. The space itself is curved by the mass, and light follows that curve. This is called gravitational lensing. We've observed distant galaxies whose light has been bent by massive clusters of dark matter between us and them. The galaxies appear distorted, stretched into arcs, sometimes duplicated. Not because anything's wrong with the galaxies themselves, but because the space between us and them is warped by something we can't see, by dark matter. And dark matter isn't just in galaxies, it's everywhere. It forms the scaffolding of the cosmic web, the invisible structure that holds everything together. The filaments we talked about, they're traced by galaxies, yes, but the galaxies are just following the dark matter, falling into its gravitational wells, clustering where the dark matter is densest. The dark matter came first. In the early universe, before the first stars formed, dark matter was already clumping together, creating regions of slightly higher density. Normal matter, hydrogen and helium gas, fell into those regions, collapsed, heated up, formed the first stars. But the dark matter was always there, underneath, providing the framework. And it still is. Every galaxy is embedded in a halo of dark matter. Every cluster of galaxies, every filament in the cosmic web. The visible universe is just the tip of the iceberg. Most of the structure is invisible, silent. We can map it indirectly by watching how galaxies move, how light bends, how gas behaves, but we can't see it. It's a ghost structure, a hidden architecture, and it's everywhere, even in the voids. The voids aren't completely empty of dark matter. There's less of it than in the filaments, but it's still there. Diffuse, spread thin, invisible threads holding nothing together. It's strange to think about. Most of the universe is made of something we've never directly detected, something we can't see or touch or measure, except by its gravitational effects. We don't even know what it is. There are theories, hypothetical particles, WIMPs, weakly interacting massive particles, axions, sterile neutrinos. But we haven't found any of them, not yet. Labs around the world are searching, deep underground, shielded from cosmic rays, waiting for a dark matter particle to drift through and interact with a detector. So far, nothing, just silence. Maybe we're looking in the wrong way. Maybe dark matter interacts so rarely that we'll never catch it in a lab. Maybe it's something completely different from what we're imagining. We don't know. And that's part of the silence too. Not just the physical emptiness of space, but the gaps in our understanding. The things we know are there but can't grasp. The universe is full of questions we can't answer yet. Dark matter is one. Dark energy is another. Dark energy is even stranger. If dark matter is invisible scaffolding, dark energy is the force pushing everything apart. It makes up about 68% of the universe, more than matter and dark matter combined. But we have no idea what it is. We discovered it by accident in a way. In the 1990s, astronomers were studying distant supernovae, exploding stars. They're useful as distance markers because they all have roughly the same brightness when they explode. So if you see one that's dimmer than expected, it must be farther away than expected. And that's what they found. Distant supernovae were dimmer, which meant the universe was expanding faster than it should be. Not just expanding, accelerating. Something was pushing space apart, overcoming gravity, making the expansion speed up instead of slow down. They called it dark energy. Not because it's dark in the sense of being invisible, though it is, but because we don't know what it is. It's a placeholder name. One idea is that dark energy is a property of space itself, a kind of energy that's inherent to empty space. As space expands, more empty space is created, which means more dark energy, which pushes things apart faster, which creates even more space. A feedback loop. Another idea is that it's a field, something permeating all of space, with a negative pressure that causes expansion. We don't know. What we do know is that it's there, and it's strong, and it's making the universe quieter. Because as space expands, galaxies move farther apart. The distances between them grow. The cosmic web stretches. Eventually, galaxies beyond our local group will be so far away that we won't be able to see them anymore. Their light will be stretched to wavelengths we can't detect. They'll fade from view. The universe will become more isolated, more empty, more silent. That's billions of years away. But it's already happening. Right now, there are galaxies accelerating away from us. Their light is redshifting, stretching toward the infrared, toward radio waves. Eventually, it will stretch so far that it becomes undetectable. And those galaxies will disappear from our view. Not because they've been destroyed, just because the space between us has grown too large. They'll still be there, still shining, still full of stars and planets, but we'll never see them again. They'll be beyond the horizon, lost to the silence. It's a kind of cosmic loneliness when you think about it. We're surrounded by galaxies now, billions of them, visible in every direction. But in the deep future, that won't be true. The sky will be darker, emptier, just a few nearby galaxies, all bound together by gravity. The local group. Everything else will have drifted away, and beings living in that future, if there are any, might look up at the sky and think they're alone in the universe. They'll see their galaxy, maybe one or two neighbors, and beyond that, nothing. They won't know about the billions of galaxies that once filled the sky, that still exist but too far away to see. They'll think the universe is small, quiet, empty. And in a sense, they'll be right, because the observable universe, the part they can see, will be much smaller than the one we see now. The silence will have grown. This is already true to some extent. There are parts of the universe we can't see because they're beyond the cosmological horizon. Their light hasn't had time to reach us yet, or it never will, because the space between us is expanding too fast. We're seeing a limited bubble, a sphere of observability. And that sphere isn't growing. Not really. Yes, light from farther away is reaching us all the time. But the expansion of space is pushing distant galaxies away faster than new light can arrive. The edge of the observable universe is almost like a wall. Not a physical barrier, just a boundary beyond which we can't see. And on the other side? Presumably, more galaxies, more stars, more voids. But we'll never know for sure. It's hidden from us, by distance, by time, by the structure of space itself. Another kind of silence. The silence of things we can't know. Let's bring it back to something smaller, something we can almost picture. A single galaxy floating in a void. Not in one of the superclusters, not in a filament, just out there, alone. These exist. We found a few, isolated galaxies, millions of light years from their nearest neighbor. No gravitational interactions, no tidal forces, no companions. Just one galaxy spinning slowly in the dark. Imagine being on a planet in one of those galaxies. You'd look up at the sky and see your own stars, the Milky Way equivalent, bright and beautiful. But beyond that, nothing. No Andromeda, no Magellanic Clouds, no nearby galaxies. Just a few faint smudges, impossibly far away. You'd be truly isolated. Your entire galaxy, hundreds of billions of stars, and it would feel like the whole universe. Because from your perspective, it almost is. Nothing else is close enough to matter. It's a different kind of silence, more profound maybe. Not the emptiness between galaxies, but the isolation of a whole galaxy. A little island of light, surrounded by an ocean of dark. And here's the thing, it doesn't make a difference. From the perspective of a star, or a planet, or a hypothetical being living there, life goes on the same way. Stars shine, planets orbit, chemistry happens. The silence doesn't intrude, it's just the background, the context. Most beings probably wouldn't even notice. Why would they? The distances are too vast to cross, the emptiness too large to explore. It only matters to us because we've learned to look outward, to measure, to map. We've made the silence visible, in a sense. We've turned the emptiness into data. But for most of the history of life on Earth, the cosmos was invisible, irrelevant. People looked up and saw stars. They didn't know those stars were other suns. They didn't know about galaxies or cosmic voids or the expansion of space. The silence was there, but no one knew about it. And life continued just fine. Maybe that's worth remembering. The silence of the cosmos doesn't affect us directly. It's not a threat. It's not a problem. It's just there. A feature of the universe. Part of the structure. Most of reality is empty space. That's just how things are. And within that emptiness, pockets of complexity exist. Galaxies, stars, planets, life. Little knots of activity in an otherwise still expanse. The silence allows those knots to exist. Without the emptiness, everything would collapse together. Too much matter in too little space. Unstable, chaotic. The voids give structure, room to form. They provide the gaps between the threads of the cosmic web. They allow galaxies to exist as distinct objects, rather than smearing together into some incomprehensible mess. The silence is functional, in a way. It's not absence, it's space. space for things to be, to exist, to persist. And in that space, time unfolds slowly. Because there's nothing pushing it forward. No events forcing change, just duration, vast stretches of it. In the voids, time passes the way it does in deep sleep, unnoticed, undifferentiated. 1 billion years in a void looks the same as 1 billion years and 1 day. Nothing has happened. Nothing has changed. It's all just quiet. Of course, even in the voids there are faint signals. Radiation. The universe is full of it. Photons left over from various processes, traveling through space. The most famous is the cosmic microwave background. After the Big Bang, the universe was hot, incredibly hot, filled with a dense plasma of particles and radiation. But as it expanded, it cooled. Eventually, it cooled enough that electrons could combine with protons to form neutral hydrogen atoms. When that happened, photons could travel freely. They were no longer constantly scattering off charged particles. That moment, called recombination, is when the universe became transparent. And the photons from that moment are still traveling, still moving through space. But they've been redshifted by the expansion of the universe. They started as visible light and ultraviolet. Now they're microwaves. Faint, cold, just a few degrees above absolute zero. But they're everywhere. In the voids, in the filaments, between galaxies, inside galaxies, everywhere. A faint glow left over from the beginning. We detected it in the 1960s, by accident actually. 2 scientists were trying to eliminate noise from a radio antenna and kept picking up a persistent signal. Same intensity in every direction. Turned out, it wasn't noise. It was the echo of the Big Bang. The cosmic microwave background. It's one of the most important discoveries in cosmology. Proof that the universe had a hot, dense beginning. That it's been expanding and cooling ever since. And it's still there, still detectable. Even in the silence, there's this faint hum, this background radiation. A reminder that the universe isn't completely empty, just very, very quiet. There are other faint signals too. Neutrinos, for instance. Neutrinos are particles produced by nuclear reactions. They're incredibly light, nearly massless, and they barely interact with anything. They can pass through entire planets without hitting a single atom. They're constantly streaming through space, through you, right now. Billions of them every second. From the sun, from distant supernovae, from cosmic rays hitting the atmosphere. But you don't notice. They're invisible. Undetectable without enormous specialized equipment. Another form of silence. Particles everywhere, passing through everything, and we're completely unaware. Then there's the gravity itself. Even in the voids, gravity is present, faint, weak, but there. Every particle of matter creates a tiny distortion in space, a minuscule gravitational field, and all those fields add up, interact, create a web of influences. Even in the emptiest regions, gravity is pulling, very slightly. Not enough to bring anything together, not enough to cause any noticeable change. But it's there. A background curvature to space, a subtle structure. We can detect it, barely, with gravitational wave observatories. These are instruments designed to measure ripples in space-time, distortions caused by massive objects accelerating, black holes colliding, neutron stars merging. The waves spread out from those events, traveling at the speed of light, stretching and compressing space as they pass. By the time they reach Earth, they're unimaginably faint. The distortion is smaller than the width of a proton. But we can measure it. And we have. We've detected dozens of gravitational wave events, collisions billions of light years away. The waves passed through the voids on their way here, through the silence, carrying information about events long past, long finished. Ripples in the fabric of space, traveling through the emptiness. It's a strange kind of signal, not light, not matter, just geometry. Space itself, wiggling slightly. And it reminds us that even the emptiness isn't truly empty. It's space. And space is something. It can bend, it can ripple, it can expand. It's not just a passive container for matter. It's part of the structure, an active component of reality. And in the silence, that becomes clearer. Without the noise of matter and light, you can almost sense the underlying framework, the shape of space itself, the quiet geometry that everything else is built on. Of course, we're still mostly guessing about what space actually is. We have models, equations. General relativity describes how space curves in response to mass and energy. But what space is made of, what it fundamentally is, we don't know. It might be a field. It might be emergent from something deeper. It might be quantized at tiny scales. We don't know. Another silence. Another gap in understanding. The universe is full of them. Things we know are there but can't fully explain. Things we've measured but don't understand. Patterns we've observed but can't predict. And maybe that's appropriate. Maybe the silence of the cosmos is reflected in the silence of our knowledge. We've learned an enormous amount in the past few centuries. We've measured the universe, mapped it, traced its history back to the first moments after the Big Bang. But there's still so much we don't know, so much that's hidden, silent, waiting to be discovered, or maybe never to be discovered. Some things might be fundamentally unknowable, beyond the horizon, beyond our ability to measure or observe, lost in the silence. And maybe that's okay. Maybe not everything needs to be known. Maybe the silence can just be the silence, a feature of reality, a quality of the cosmos, vast, enduring, indifferent. When you look out at the night sky, you're seeing through layers of silence, the space between you and the stars, the space between stars, the space between galaxies, all of it mostly empty, mostly quiet. But that emptiness is what allows you to see the light. If space were opaque, filled with dust or gas, you wouldn't see anything. The transparency of the vacuum is what makes the stars visible. The silence is what carries the signal. And maybe that's the best way to think about it. Not as absence, but as medium. The silence isn't nothing. It's the background, the canvas. And against that canvas, everything else appears. The light of stars, the glow of galaxies, the faint ripples of gravitational waves. All of it set against the quiet, defined by it, made visible by contrast. Without the silence, there would be no structure, no distinct objects, no separate galaxies, just noise, a formless blur. The silence gives the universe its shape, its texture, its beauty even. And in the deep future, when the last stars have burned out and the universe is cold and dark, the silence will remain. Patient, unchanging, the final state of things. Not an ending, exactly. Just a settling, a return to stillness. The voids will still be there, larger than ever, emptier. The dark matter will still trace its invisible web. Dark energy will still push space apart. But there will be no light, no heat, no motion, just silence. Profound, complete, eternal. And maybe, in some strange way, peaceful. A universe at rest, no longer striving, no longer changing, just being, quietly existing in the dark. That's trillions of years away, of course. For now, there are still stars, still galaxies spinning in the night, still planets orbiting, still life, at least here on Earth. The silence hasn't swallowed everything yet. There's still time, still light, still noise, but it's surrounded by quiet. Always has been, always will be. The cosmos is mostly empty, mostly silent, and in that silence, we exist. Briefly, improbably. A little flicker of activity in the vast stillness. Here at ZzScience, we let these questions unfold slowly. We sit with them. We don't rush to conclusions or easy answers. Sometimes the questions are enough. Sometimes just noticing the silence is enough. You don't have to understand it completely. You don't have to resolve it. You can just acknowledge it. The universe is mostly quiet, mostly still. And somehow, against all that stillness, here we are, warm, awake, thinking, for a little while longer. Let's talk about what it means. Not in a grand philosophical sense, necessarily, just what it means to us. To anyone looking up at the night sky and feeling that emptiness. Why does the silence of the cosmos affect us the way it does? There's something about scale that unsettles the mind. We're built to understand small spaces, rooms, buildings, maybe a landscape stretching to the horizon. But light years, billions of galaxies, voids hundreds of millions of light years across. That's beyond our intuition. We can say the numbers, we can do the math, but we can't really picture it. Not in the way we can picture a mountain or an ocean. It's too big, too empty, too quiet. And maybe that's where the feeling comes from. The sense that the cosmos is somehow absent, not hostile, not welcoming, just indifferent. Space doesn't care about us. It doesn't care about anything. It just is. And there's something unsettling about that, if you think about it too long. We're used to things having meaning, purpose, context. A chair is for sitting. A tree provides shade. A river flows to the sea. But space doesn't flow anywhere. It doesn't do anything. It just sits there, expanding slowly, mostly empty. And all the things we care about, life, consciousness, meaning, are tiny exceptions to that emptiness. Brief fluctuations in an otherwise still system. We're not the norm. We're the anomaly. Most of the universe is silent. Most of it will always be silent. And we're just here, for a moment. That can feel lonely, or liberating, depending on how you look at it. Lonely because it suggests we're isolated, that there's no grand plan, no cosmic purpose. Just us, on a small planet, in a galaxy among billions, surrounded by emptiness. But liberating because it means we're free. The universe isn't watching. It isn't judging. It doesn't care what we do. We're free to make our own meaning, our own purpose. Against the silence, we can be as loud or as quiet as we want. And it doesn't matter to the cosmos either way. There's a certain peace in that, if you let yourself feel it. The pressure is off. You don't have to be significant on a cosmic scale. You can't be. Nothing can. Even galaxies are insignificant in the grand scheme of things. They're just clumps of matter, held together by gravity, floating through the void. Eventually, they'll drift apart. Eventually, the stars will burn out. Eventually, even the black holes will evaporate. and the universe will return to silence. So nothing lasts, nothing is permanent, and maybe that's okay. Maybe impermanence is just another feature of reality, like the emptiness, something to accept rather than resist. When ancient people looked up at the sky, they saw patterns, stories. They connected the stars into constellations, gave them names, mythologies. The sky was alive with meaning, with gods and heroes and cosmic dramas. But they didn't know about the distances. They didn't know the stars were other suns, that the faint band of the Milky Way was billions of stars, that beyond our galaxy were billions more. They saw a ceiling, a dome, a boundary, and that made the cosmos feel smaller, more intimate. We've lost that intimacy. Now we know the scale, the emptiness, the silence, and it changes how we see things. The stars aren't just lights in the sky, they're objects, physical things, separated from us by distances we can never cross. We can measure them, study them, understand their physics, but we can't touch them, can't reach them, can't make them part of our lived experience. They're data points, information, not companions. And maybe that's part of the silence too. Not just the physical emptiness of space, but the emotional distance, the loss of connection. We know more about the universe than any previous generation, but we feel farther from it. It's become abstract, mathematical, a collection of facts and numbers. And facts don't keep you warm at night. Numbers don't inspire awe, not in the way a meteor shower does, or a solar eclipse. We've gained knowledge, but we've lost something too. A sense of presence maybe, the feeling that the cosmos is here, with us, around us. Now it's mostly elsewhere, distant, unreachable, silent. But here's the thing, the silence was always there. The ancients didn't know about it, but it existed just the same. The distances were always vast, the voids were always empty. Nothing has changed except our awareness. We've simply learned to see what was always true. And maybe that's an achievement in itself. To look out at the emptiness and not turn away. To measure it, map it, try to understand it. Even knowing we'll never cross it. Even knowing it dwarfs us completely. There's a kind of courage in that. Not physical courage, intellectual courage maybe. The willingness to confront a reality that doesn't care about you. To sit with the silence and not flinch. Most people don't think about the cosmos much, and that's fine. It's not necessary for daily life. You don't need to know about dark matter to raise a family. You don't need to understand cosmic expansion to do your job. The silence doesn't intrude on everyday existence. It's only when you stop and look up, really look up, that you start to feel it. The vastness, the emptiness. And even then, it's fleeting. You can't hold that feeling for long. The mind drifts back to immediate concerns. What's for dinner? What time is that meeting? Did I remember to lock the door? The cosmos recedes. The silence fades, and life continues. Which is probably healthy, in a way. You can't function if you're constantly thinking about the heat death of the universe. You can't live if you're overwhelmed by the scale of things. So we compartmentalize. We focus on what's in front of us, and we let the cosmos be a background fact, something we acknowledge but don't dwell on. But occasionally, maybe on a clear night, away from city lights, you look up, and you see the stars, and for a moment you remember. The silence is there. It's always been there. And you're here, briefly, looking out at it. a small point of awareness in an ocean of emptiness. That moment can feel profound, or it can feel like nothing at all. Depends on your mood, maybe, your frame of mind. But it's there, available, anytime you want to remember how big things are, how quiet. Some people find that comforting, the idea that their problems are small, temporary, insignificant on a cosmic scale. It puts things in perspective. Worries shrink, anxieties fade. What does it matter, really, in the face of all that emptiness? Others find it unsettling. The idea that nothing they do matters, that the universe is indifferent, that we're alone in the silence. Both responses are valid. The cosmos doesn't tell you how to feel about it. It just is. And you can interpret that however you want. Here's something worth considering, though. The silence isn't a verdict. It's not the universe saying, "You don't matter." It's just the absence of a statement. The cosmos isn't saying anything. It's silent. And in that silence, you're free to decide what matters. Not objectively, not cosmically, but to you, right now. Meaning doesn't have to come from the universe. It can come from you, from your relationships, your work, your experiences, from the fact that you're here, conscious, able to think and feel and wonder. That's not nothing, even if it's temporary, even if it's small, it's real. And maybe that's enough. The cosmos can be silent. It can be vast and empty and indifferent. But that doesn't erase your existence. You're still here, still feeling, still thinking about all this. And that's something. A brief interruption in the silence, a moment of warmth in the cold. Let's think about the quiet from a different angle. What if the silence is necessary? What if complexity can only exist in the gaps? After all, noise is just undifferentiated chaos. Sound waves overlapping, signals interfering. But silence. Silence allows you to hear individual sounds, to distinguish one thing from another. In music, the rests are as important as the notes. Without pauses, it's just noise. The silence creates structure, rhythm, meaning. Maybe the cosmos works the same way. The voids aren't empty failures, they're pauses, spaces between the notes. And the galaxies, the stars, the planets, the life, are the notes themselves. Brief, distinct, meaningful because they're surrounded by quiet. If the universe were uniformly dense, nothing could form. No stars, no planets, no structure. Just a formless soup of particles colliding endlessly. The emptiness allows separation, distance, individuality. It lets things be themselves. A galaxy can be a galaxy because it's not merged with its neighbors. A star can be a star because it's not crushed by the mass around it. You can be you because you're distinct, separate. The silence defines the boundaries. Without it, everything would blur together. No distinctions, no identity, no meaning. So maybe the emptiness isn't absence, maybe it's definition. The space that allows things to exist as discrete entities. The quiet that makes the music possible. And if that's true, then the silence isn't something to fear or mourn. It's something to appreciate. The background that makes the foreground visible. The stillness that allows motion to be noticed. The quiet that makes sound meaningful. We exist because of the silence, not in spite of it. And maybe that's the real insight here. The cosmos feels empty because it is empty. But that emptiness is functional. It's not a flaw, it's a feature. The universe is mostly silent because silence is what allows structure to exist. allows time to unfold, allows things to happen without constant interference. The voids aren't voids in the negative sense. They're spaces, distances, gaps. And those gaps are what make everything else possible. Now, does that give the silence meaning? Not in an intentional sense. The universe didn't design itself this way. There's no consciousness behind it, no plan. It's just how things work, how physics operates. Low-density regions expand, high-density regions collapse. Over time, you get structure, galaxies, voids, filaments. And within that structure, complexity emerges. Chemistry, life, consciousness. But it's all contingent, accidental. The universe could have been different. The constants of physics could have been slightly different, and none of this would exist. No stars, no galaxies, no life, just something else. Or nothing at all. We're here because the universe happened to have the right properties, the right balance between expansion and gravity, the right particle masses, the right forces. Change any of those, and the silence would be absolute. No interruptions, no galaxies, no light, just emptiness. Forever. So in a sense, we're lucky. Not lucky in a purposeful way, just fortunate. The universe happened to be configured in a way that allows us to exist. And we happen to be living during the brief era when stars shine. Before that, it was too hot, too dense. After, trillions of years from now, it will be too cold, too empty. But right now? Right now there's structure, complexity, life. A little warmth in the cold, a little noise in the silence. And we're part of that. Not the center of it, not the purpose of it, just part of it. One more galaxy among billions. One more star among trillions. One more planet among countless others. But still here, still existing, still briefly aware of the silence around us. There's a thought experiment sometimes posed in philosophy. If a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? The usual answer is yes. Sound is just vibrations in air. Those vibrations happen whether anyone's listening or not. But here's a related question. If the universe is silent, no one to hear it, no observers across vast stretches of space, is it really silent? Or is silence something that requires awareness? Something that only exists when there's someone to notice the absence of sound? Maybe the voids aren't silent. Maybe they're just undefined. Neither silent nor loud. Just existing in a state that doesn't involve sound at all. Silence might be a human concept, something we project onto the cosmos because we're used to environments with sound. But space doesn't have air, doesn't have medium for sound waves, so calling it silent might be a category error, like asking what color the number 7 is. It's not a question that applies. But still, we feel it, the silence. Not as sound, but as absence, as distance, as emptiness, as the sense that there's nothing out there listening, nothing responding, just the void. And maybe that's what we really mean by cosmic silence. Not the absence of sound, but the absence of connection. The feeling that we're shouting into darkness and no one is answering. Or maybe they are, and we just can't hear them yet. The distances are so vast, the signals so faint. If there's another civilization out there, another pocket of consciousness in another galaxy, their signals might be traveling toward us right now, crossing the void at the speed of light. But they haven't arrived yet. still en route, still crossing the silence. And maybe they never will. Maybe the distances are too great. Maybe, by the time their signal reaches us, we'll be gone. Or they will. Civilizations are temporary too. Probably. We've only been sending signals into space for about a century. And who knows how much longer we'll last? Another century? 1,000 years? 1,000,000? Even 1,000,000 years is nothing on cosmic timescales. A brief flicker, a momentary noise, and then silence again. Maybe that's the fate of all civilizations. To arise, to shine briefly, to send a few signals into the void, and then to fade. Back into the quiet, leaving nothing behind but faint electromagnetic echoes, spreading outward at the speed of light, gradually weakening, gradually disappearing into the background noise, until they're indistinguishable from the cosmic microwave background, lost in the silence. It's a sobering thought, but also strangely beautiful in its way. The idea that we're all temporary, all brief interruptions in the quiet. Not just us as individuals, but civilizations, species, entire planets. Everything has its moment, its time, and then it passes, back into the stillness. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's just how things are supposed to work. Not supposed to in a moral sense, just how they do work. Temporary structures arising in the flow of time, persisting for a while, then dissolving. It happens at every scale. Individual organisms live and die. Species evolve and go extinct. Stars form and burn out. Galaxies collide and merge. Even the universe itself is temporary, in a sense. It had a beginning. It will have an end, or at least a final state. A state of maximum entropy. Maximum silence. Everything's spread out so far that nothing can interact with anything else. Just isolated particles drifting through an ever-expanding void. That's trillions of years away, but it's where things are headed. The ultimate silence, and somehow, knowing that, we're still here, still caring about things, still finding meaning in our brief existence, still looking up at the night sky and wondering. Maybe that's the real miracle. Not that the universe exists, not that it's so vast and so empty, but that in the midst of all that emptiness, there's us, briefly aware, briefly capable of asking questions, briefly able to appreciate the silence for what it is, a feature of reality, a context for existence, not a judgment, not a statement, just the way things are. You know what's interesting? The silence doesn't bother most animals. They don't look up at the sky and feel existential dread. They don't wonder about cosmic voids or the heat death of the universe. They just live, moment to moment, concerned with immediate needs: food, shelter, reproduction. The cosmos is irrelevant to them, not because they're ignorant, but because it genuinely doesn't matter. Their existence is local, immediate, and that's enough. Only humans, and maybe a few other highly intelligent species, have the capacity to think about the cosmos, to measure it, to wonder about it, to feel small in the face of it. Is that a gift or a burden? Hard to say. On one hand, it's amazing that we can understand the universe, that we can trace its history, predict its future, that a species confined to a single planet can figure out the age and size and structure of the entire cosmos. That's remarkable. But on the other hand, that knowledge comes with weight. The awareness of our insignificance, our isolation, our impermanence. The silence becomes real once you know it's there, and you can't unknow it. You can ignore it, distract yourself, focus on other things. But it's always there in the background. The knowledge that we're surrounded by emptiness, that most of the universe is quiet, dark, unreachable. Maybe that's the cost of consciousness, the ability to know things that don't necessarily make you happier, to understand things that are too big to fully process, to be aware of the silence. But maybe it's also the gift, because with that awareness comes choice, the choice to make your own meaning, your own purpose, the choice to appreciate the brief moment of warmth and light and complexity, to be grateful for it, even knowing it's temporary, even knowing the silence is waiting. There's a poem, well, a fragment of a poem, by someone whose name I can't quite recall. It goes something like, "We are a way for the cosmos to know itself." That's probably not exact, but the idea is there, that consciousness, our consciousness, is the universe becoming aware of its own existence. For a brief moment, in a tiny corner of space. The cosmos has been silent for billions of years. But now, for a little while, there's noise, there's awareness. There are beings looking out at the emptiness and recognizing it for what it is. And maybe that's meaningful. Not cosmically meaningful, the universe doesn't care, but meaningful to us. We're the part of the universe that can wonder, that can ask questions, that can sit quietly on a clear night and look up at the stars and feel something. Awe, loneliness, connection, fear, peace. Whatever it is, it's real. And it matters, at least to us. The silence is vast, but it's not complete. Not as long as there's someone here to notice it, to think about it, to try to understand it. And right now, there is. You. Right now, reading these words, thinking these thoughts. You're the brief interruption in the silence, the momentary awareness in the midst of the void. And that's not nothing. That's everything in its own small way. Because without that awareness, without you, the silence would be absolute, unnoticed, unacknowledged. But because you're here, it's not. The cosmos has a witness, brief, temporary, insignificant on a cosmic scale, but real. And real is all that matters. Let's come back to something simple. A clear night, a dark sky, stars visible overhead. You're looking up, and for a moment, you're connected to all of it. Not physically. The distances are still there, the emptiness is still there. But the light from those stars has traveled across the void to reach you. Photons that left a distant sun decades or centuries or millennia ago, and they crossed the silence. Just to end their journey in your eye, to be absorbed by cells in your retina, converted to electrical signals, interpreted by your brain. That's a kind of connection, isn't it? Not a conversation, not a relationship, but a link, a thread of light across the darkness. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all we get. Brief moments of connection, light crossing the void, information traveling through silence. And on this end, our end, someone looking up, noticing, wondering, feeling, making meaning out of photons. The cosmos doesn't give us meaning, but it gives us the raw materials: light, distance, time, structure. And we take those materials and build something. Stories, science, art, philosophy, ways of understanding, ways of coping, ways of appreciating. The silence becomes a canvas, and we paint on it. briefly, with our thoughts, our observations, our attempts to make sense of things. And then we're gone, and the canvas remains, blank again, silent again, waiting for the next brief interruption. Or not waiting, just being, indifferent to whether anyone notices or not. That's the cosmos. Vast, silent, indifferent, but also beautiful in its own austere way. Beautiful because it's real, because it's there, because against all odds, we're here to see it, to appreciate it, even if just for a moment. The silence doesn't diminish us. If anything, it makes our existence more remarkable, more precious, maybe, because it's so improbable, so temporary, so small against the backdrop of all that emptiness. And yet here we are, warm, alive, conscious, thinking about the silence, feeling it, understanding it, and somehow, despite everything, finding a way to be okay with it, to accept it, to live with it, to look up at the night sky and not be crushed by the weight of all that emptiness, but instead to feel something else, wonder, curiosity, peace, a quiet appreciation for the fact that we're here at all, that the universe, for a brief moment, is not completely silent, because we're here, making noise, asking questions, seeking answers, briefly interrupting the quiet. And that's enough. It has to be, because it's all we get. This moment, this life, this brief flicker of awareness, surrounded by silence, bordered by darkness, but here, real, now. And maybe that's the only meaning that matters. Not cosmic significance, not eternal purpose, just being here, being aware, being alive for as long as we get, against the silence, within the silence, part of the silence in a way, because eventually we'll return to it, all of us, all of life, all of civilization, back to the quiet. The universe will continue, the stars will burn, the galaxies will drift, and the silence will persist, patient, unchanging, vast, the way it always has been, the way it always will be. And that's okay. That's just how things are. The cosmos is mostly empty, mostly quiet, mostly dark. But for now, for this brief, improbable moment, there's us, looking up, wondering, feeling, making our small noise in the vast stillness. And that's enough. It's more than enough. It's everything. So tonight, if you look up at the sky, remember that. The silence is there. It's always been there. Vast, ancient, indifferent. But you're here too. Brief, temporary, small, but real. And between you and those distant stars, there's nothing but emptiness. Light years of silence. But the light crossed it, reached you, connected you in its own quiet way to something far away, something old, something beautiful. And you noticed. You looked up, you saw, you wondered. And in that moment, the silence wasn't absolute. It was witnessed, acknowledged, appreciated. And that's all any of us can do. Notice the silence, Sit with it, accept it, and find meaning not in spite of it, but alongside it. In the brief spaces between the quiet, in the small moments of warmth and light and consciousness, in the simple fact of being here, now, alive, surrounded by emptiness, surrounded by silence, but here, real, present, for as long as we get to be. And when it's over, when we return to the silence, the cosmos will go on, unchanged, untroubled, still mostly empty, still mostly quiet, still waiting. Or not waiting, just being. The way it always has been, the way it always will be. Silent, vast, beautiful in its own austere way, and indifferent to it all. Which is fine, because we were here. We saw. We wondered. We appreciated. We made our small noise in the void, and that's enough. That's all there is. And somehow, against the silence, it's everything. So rest now. Let the silence be the silence. Let the emptiness be the emptiness. You don't have to solve it. You don't have to fix it. You just have to be here. For now. And let the cosmos be what it is. Vast, quiet, still, and beautiful in its own way. Beautiful. Good night.